bank and the restaurant.
Yes, and somebody wanted to build there, and he was saying that his ability to build and make money on that building was not adequate because he was not in the AP, could not be in the APC. So that has come up before. You know, and further, didn't the Pearl come to us before they were built and said they were going to be able to not only accommodate their residential parking, but that the retail wasn't going to be an impact on the parking down at that end of Old Woodward? I mean, I'm pretty sure that we questioned them pretty particularly about that. And now here they are saying, oh, they need more parking and they want a special allowance in order to do that. Now, I also understand what you said, Scott, about the way the zoning is right now. I think lot 6, though, is the only really big lot. In a certain way, it's been treated in terms of our considerations like it was one of the parking structures because it handles so much parking. So maybe that is something that needs to be remedied, that lot 6 needs to be included in this consideration of assessment. I understand that that's not where it is now. But this also seems like one of those things that we can't really make a very good judgment about in the present business climate. So this seems to me something that they should have to bring back to us down the road. But if we were to look at the way parking was pre-COVID in that lot and in the adjoining permit parking, there's not really room to start accommodating several more retail businesses, their employees, and that extension of the demand.
I'd like to see more statistics as to how much square footage of retail they have, how many employees they anticipate, what kind of businesses are in the location. Are there going to be any salons? You know, what's going to be their burden on the lot 6 system, which in the past has been overwhelmed during certain times. So I'd like to see more data.
So I think what you're asking for, and I completely understand as far as how do we know what the demand is going to be? How do you know what business is going to be? The only thing I question or caution you there is that, you know, who knows what the business is going to be 6 months from now or 2 years from now. Once the decision is made that a business is in the parking assessment district and all the, I guess, rights are, you know, come with that, those businesses can obviously change over time. So I don't think you necessarily want to make a decision on what business is coming in now because you don't know what that's going to be a year or 3 years from now. So I think you kind of got to look at it as holistically as, you know, no matter what business is going to come in there, what could possibly be the impact, and can the system handle that? So, and I think Brooks I saw you had your hand up. If you had some points you wanted to make.
Yeah. Morning, everyone. Brooks Callan. I'm with the City Planning Department and have been working with the Pearl. In regards to some of the statistics on the retail tenants, they have retail proposed for the first floor, and they demise the space into 3 spaces. And so when it went to the planning board, there was 4,500 square feet of retail space indicated on the plans, and the applicants indicated they'd be providing 23 additional spaces for these retail tenants. They're required to provide 42 for the residential units. Those are required to be provided as per the ordinance. And so the Pearl has 65 total, 42s for residential, so 23 spaces were remaining for the retail tenants. When they went to the planning board, all the space indicated as retail was divided by the one parking space per 300 square feet. However, our ordinance does have different requirements for salons and for food and beverage uses. And what we've seen is for the three, we've seen applications for 2 salons/spas, and then a smoothie store, which can operate as a carryout, kind of like a carryout pizza place. But once they try to become a food and beverage, they need a special land use permit, and the parking requirement goes to 1 space per 75 square feet. And so we've seen an excess of basically with the 2 salons and a food and beverage, they would need more than 23. It would be upwards of in the 30s for those 3 uses. So just wanted to provide some of the current zoning requirement statistics that we are looking at on the planning side. And with that, I can answer any questions you guys have for that end.
So Brooks, this is Jennifer. So what you're saying is then if they're approved to be within the parking district, then they are exempt from those requirements.
That would be correct. They're still required to provide the on-site parking for residential, but then the those retail spaces would be exempt from having to provide for say a retail use versus a salon use, which has different parking requirements.
Well, based on what Judy has brought up, to our memory, that seems to be kind of a 180 as to oh,
Can't hear you, Al.
pardon me.
Sorry. Yeah, I couldn't hear you. Sorry.
Okay, based on what Judy has brought up in terms of what was brought forth to us in the past, this seems to be kind of a 180 approach to what they have said in the past, that they're going to be self-supported with their parking. Am I right, Judy?
Oh, yeah, I think that, this isn't the first time where we have builders come in and they say, oh, we've got it all taken care of. And it's not going to be an impact, and we understand, and we want to build even with the limits that we have. And then it begins to look different. I've walked by there and saw these new places with the handful of spots that they have out in front for parking and wondered, how is this going to work? But it's what they asked for, and now this is what they've got.
I have a question. Steve Kalzinski here. I understand there has been 1 case in the past, or maybe 2. How does this set a precedent for the future? Or does it set a precedent for the future?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. I mean, so if somebody comes in and says, yeah, we're going to make sure that we don't impact the parking system, and all of a sudden we want to come into the accessible district, I have concerns with that.
And I also objected when the post office came online that the assessment was basically too low, for the merchants that have, paid for these structures. I don't know how we got to that formula or how we revised that, but I think to come in for $2,400 for that amount of spaces is it's too low. And I don't know how, going forward that, as you say, if we set a precedent right now, what happens with a larger building and they get it into the assessment, and, that's my objection. I mean, I know what I've paid for all those structures, and $2,400 is a pretty small price.
And I did ask the finance director about that, and my understanding of how that's figured out is, again, based on the language that's existed once it was instituted. and it has to do with the distance to the structures. So the closer you are to basically the center of the central business district, the higher those fees are going to be. So the one question I did have, Brooks, if maybe you can explain on what you said is if the building has 20, I think you said 23 spaces set aside for business use, which doesn't meet the standard for what the businesses they're proposing to bring in. If they were to be in the parking assessment district, do those 23 spaces that they have on site, are they able to use those for anything they want now, or they still have to be set aside for the business use?
Right. For planning, we go by totals. You know, they could be used, you know, in addition for the retail uses. And so, you know, hypothetically, how they split up the parking that they have on site between whether it's a residential use, office use, retail use, it's kind of up to the owner, and then we check the ordinance. But then hypothetically, if they are admitted into the parking assessment district, they then do not have to provide any on-site parking for the office retail use. So those 23 could, they could allocate them in whatever manner they wanted to. And then, you know, as you said earlier, the use of those 23 spaces does change as the different users come in over the years. I think they have enough on site for an outright retail use, such as a t-shirt store or a shoe store. I think, but you know, if a salon or a restaurant comes in, it overburdens them.
And just as a point of information, wasn't a Class C, not a Class C, but a bistro license just granted in back of Lot 6?
Correct. Sorry, you're asking me?
Yes.
Yeah. No, not a bistro license. My understanding, it's a place called the French Lady.
Yes.
Is that what you're asking about?
Yeah.
Okay. So then north end of town, their underlying zone is O2. And so the French Lady, all the kind of the brick buildings north of the farmers market there is zoned O2. And any restaurant, food and service type of style is required to get a special land use permit. And so the French Lady is a coffee shop, pastry shop, and they receive a SLUP approval to operate as a food and beverage, but it's not a B, so no alcohol.
No alcohol, okay.
No alcohol. And we have an application in the pipeline for for Fruition at the Pearl. They applied to bring in a smoothie store, and they're allowed to operate as carry out, so no indoor seating, kind of like a Little Caesar. You walk in, you walk out. If they want indoor seating, then they also have to get a special land use permit because of the O2 zoning in the underlay. So does that cover SLUP, but not a bistro, I guess? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And just to make the chair aware, I did send out information to the requester on this, that we would be talking about this morning. I do see 3 people on here that I'm not sure who they are, so they may be representatives of the Pearl that may want to speak at some point.
Right, I believe one of the representatives, Emil Turkasov. If you guys have questions for the applicant, I recognize that name. The other one's phone numbers, I'm not sure.
Do we have any comments from the public or the applicant that would like to be noted? We get them on. Is there any comments from the public? Is there any public here? Scott, do you notice anything?
I don't. Again, I just see the three down there that I'm not sure who they are, but I don't see anybody attempting to speak at this point.
Okay. They're just listening then. Is that right?
Oh, wait a minute. The Z982 says it's connecting the audio, so I'll put their muted. Okay.
So my question is, are you looking for an approval of this from our committee? Are you looking for a motion?
Yep. Looking for a motion from the APC, whether to, what your recommendation is to the commission, whether to approve or deny this request.
My concern is that this was initially brought up before us, and I do recall that, as Judy pointed out, that this building was going to be self-sufficient and wasn't going to be impacting the logistics system, and now they want to come in and be part of the logistics system. So I don't know if you want to call it, I won't call it a backdoor approach, but it just seems like I have a concern.
I would like to make a motion.
Go ahead, Judy.
The motion would be that the application for APC application for being within the parking district be denied.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second from Richard. Roll call vote, please.
Judith Paskowitz,
Aye.
Richard Ostring,
Yes.
Stephen Kozlowski,
Yes.
Lisa Kruger,
Yes.
Al Vitus,
Yes.
Jennifer Yurt.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Judy, for your motion. Okay. Moving on. That was interesting. Meeting open to the public for items not on the agenda. Do we have any public who would like to make any comment? Or any committee members who would like to make any comments on items?
I have a question.
Yes, Judy.
Catherine, could you tell us what the status is in terms of the permits and the structures? How many permits have been surrendered with this policy of needing to have the $100 payment in order to reserve your permit? How many permits have been gained back?
Good morning.
Can I interrupt for just 1 second? I apologize, but this was the open to the public for items not on the agenda, and I do see at least one person from the public in here. We just want to make sure they have a chance, and then under the miscellaneous communications, I think we can continue with your question of SP Plus. That's okay?
Sure.
That's great.
Thank you. Doesn't appear there's any comments, so we could probably move on. I just wanted to make sure that person had an opportunity if they wish to speak.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good morning. I think I'll pass this question on to Sarah. She's the one that's been dealing the closest with this.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. Sarah?
Good morning, everyone. So
Hi.
yeah, I can go ahead and give you a little bit of stats on what's going on with the permits. As of Monday, which was the last day for everyone to pay the retainer fee, we had approximately 320 passes given up. We're in current process, so out of all of our accounts, which we have 638 accounts, 92% of those that didn't cancel on their own did pay the retainer fees, and we have approximately 7% of accounts and passes that are in process of being canceled because they decided not to pay for their retainer fees.
The 320 is the 7%? I'm not
No.
following numbers.
It's okay.
Could you go through all those numbers again for me, please?
Sure. So the 320 are customers who have given up passes on their own. They
Okay.
canceled on their own. And approximately 85% of those are companies. They didn't cancel their accounts, they just canceled excess passes in their account that they no longer needed.
Okay,
So we have
Alright.
about the 7% is all our accounts is approximately people who did not, decide to cancel on their own and they did not pay the fee. So those are the people that we're going to have to cancel.
I see.
And that number is 638.
638 accounts.
So there's a possibility of almost 1,000 being given up.
Oh, no. So we have approximately 3,807 passes. 320 of those passes have been given up.
Right, but you just said there's another 638 that have not made a decision.
638 accounts. With the 638 accounts, 3,807 passes are held within those accounts. So we have different companies who have multiple account passes. So what I was saying is 92% of the accounts, the 638 accounts, paid for their passes. 7% of the 638 accounts did not pay. So with the 320 passes given up during the time between September and the end of November, there will be an additional amount just because we have to cancel ones that did not pay the retainer fee, and that's in current process. So next month at our meeting, I can give you more official numbers on how many passes total were given up due to people not paying and then people canceling on their own.
So again, if they all canceled, what would that number be? If they all canceled
If everyone canceled
yes.
of the 7%, I don't have that number right now. I'm approximately probably an additional 30 to 50 passes.
Okay, 30.
Sarah, can you clarify more? And I think maybe I didn't hear you correctly, but of the 600, and I think you said 32 accounts that have not responded, how many passes does that represent?
Okay, so 638 accounts, 92% of those accounts responded. So they did pay and they did notify me. Only 7%, which is a very low number of all the accounts, did not respond or pay for their retainer fees.
Okay. Thank you. I misunderstood you.
Okay.
Wow, that's really something. So that suggests that most of the accounts, most of those businesses are expecting to come back to offices.
Yes, we did have some of our larger accounts, give up quite a bit of passes just because they're going to be keeping people home for a while and they don't anticipate bringing people back. We also had about 15% of the cancellations, they're individuals and they, lost their jobs due to COVID and they went ahead and gave up their passes.
So is there anything that we can glean from this about what businesses are planning at this point in terms of coming back? Because these companies that have many are very much a part of the demand on the system, but also it speaks to how busy in general the downtown is going to be, because those people are active members of the community in terms of restaurants and shopping.
I can say that some of these larger accounts gave up approximately about 100 passes each. And I think they held on to about half of their passes just to, make sure, because they're not sure yet what they're going to do in regards to bringing people back. Not saying that in the future, if they decide to not bring more people back, they might cancel more, but they wanted to hold on to it just in case they do decide to bring people back, but they did give up passes.
Okay, so of the big companies, the trend was kind of to relinquish about half their passes?
Yeah, some of them about like a quarter to a half of their passes, yes.
I see. Okay.
Judith, my company is one of those larger firms.
Mhm.
We closed one of our offices. We have 2 in Birmingham.
Right?
Those people will continue permanently to be remote. So that's not to say that space won't be leased out by another office. So
Yeah, and to Lisa, what she said, it was Park Street, I believe, pass holders that they gave all those up just because that closed and they were keeping everyone remote.
And also just to keep in mind too, I think, you know, the city commission this Monday is gonna talk about the reduced rate parking that the APC made the recommendation at the last meeting to continue that free through the end of March. Depending on how the city commission votes, I think that could definitely impact too the number of passes that we see stay active or possibly get turned in going further. If the commission decides to charge for parking or keep it free, I think as long as they keep it free, you probably won't see much change in parking. But if they decide to start charging, you may see businesses opt to turn them in versus hold on to something they're not sure they're going to use in the future. So I think just keep that in mind too. Also, I think we'll see an impact once we start reaching out to people on the list. The list on the wait list right now, I think, is around 3,600 people waiting for passes. So I believe, you know, we're going to start reaching out to that. We're going to see this probably a similar percentage of people drop off that list that don't want to pass no more because of the same circumstances. So this whole process will take some time, but I think you're going to see probably some additional passes turned in, as well as more people drop off the waiting list that no longer need a pass.
Just let me remind everybody that when we discussed that at the last meeting, it was DSC Director Ingrid Ty that recommended continuing reduced rate parking in order to support businesses in the holiday season. That's how
Right.
it started.
You know, that letter that you sent us, or the newsletter that you forwarded to us, I'm wondering if we need to send somebody to that city council meeting, because the inference in that newsletter was that that decision was made based on personal needs of the members of our committee. And it seems to me that we need to make a statement, you know, to the city council that rectifies that idea. If that's what people are on the city council think was the basis for that decision, then it needs to be further explained. It surprises me because we are each designated as interest groups within the city. And although we don't have to necessarily vote along those lines, this committee is purposefully constructed to have a voice from all these different interests.
We're stakeholders in the city.
Yes,
Yeah, we're
yes.
stakeholders in the city, and the parking committee. If you go on the city website and you click on the APC, it lists the different categories of each position, and you have to qualify for that category to be on the advisory parking committee. So so there are you know, not every position has a business stakeholder in the city, but it's a representation of all the stakeholders and different citizens, and a compilation of a blend of the different opinions that are put forth from the various factors that are on the committee. So and we all know, and I hope we know, that when we do vote to on different issues, monetary issues or whatever, we put aside our personal effect on us. And I know that to be a fact because in the past we voted numerous times to increase permit rate. And it's been quite a few times, and every time we voted on the increase in permit rate, which affects the business owners like me, that I buy a number of permits, we've all voted unanimously to increase the permit rates, which that affects our bottom line because it comes out of our pocket. But we still voted to increase the permit rates because it was the right thing to do for the city. So we put aside our personal innuences or whatever the better word would be to vote for things that are positive for the city. I hope I presented that correctly.
So to that point, are we going to need to at least make an opinion during the city commission meeting in support for the free parking?
I mean, you always have that opportunity. I mean, just like these meetings, there's always a opportunity for public comment. And obviously, as not only a member of the APC, but a member of the business district and someone that it directly affects, I mean, you have that opportunity to make that comment at that meeting.
I will. Okay.
So I was thinking about this slightly differently, and that was, do we send somebody to explain our discussion and our conclusion and what it was based on?
Was that letter though just an opinion, not an official statement?
Well, the problem, it seems to me, is that it is a distortion of the role of this committee that is widely distributed. And so I don't know if this is wider spread in terms of what the city council thinks was part of our ruling. It seems to me it is about a bigger matter because there's been other statements about the parking committee and, you know, not being informed or not studying issues or not getting research about the parking issues. And that, you know, somehow, how else do we have that voice heard about what our thinking was? Evidently, the minutes from that meeting was not enough to influence what was said in that newsletter. I understand there's a disclaimer on the newsletter.
I have an issue with how someone with an official role and title within the city can send out a letter like that and then just put a disclaimer that it's their own opinions. I just don't understand how, you know, you can't, the representation of the city is not a bias there.
Yeah, he does represent the city, and he's putting it on, in my opinion, bias on his thoughts.
Well, I was looking at, you know, I don't know if we're going to have to make a decision about whether this in general is an ethics violation. Last night, I was listening to the lecture on ethics, and I can't cite you the verbiage on this, but I can give you the numbers of the ethics issues, it seems to me, that are raised. And the numbers of those are 2-323, and then I think it's paragraph 5, 2-321, paragraph 2, and but what I have been hoping is that we could have some conversations with the city council to see if on the whole, they had an understanding of what our direction was, what we saw as our role within the city, and how we use that to inform our discussions and decision-making. Because in essence, it doesn't matter what one person thinks on the city council if they're not heavily influencing other members of the council, and that the council in general has a fair picture of the way we're operating.
I have a question. Are we able to contact commissioners and give our personal opinion as either as a merchant or from the advisory parking committee? I mean, there's nothing unethical about that, is there?
No, so I think if you go back to what the attorney Mary Kucharek was referring to in her memo with the Open Meetings Act, I think if you operate as an individual and have that conversation with somebody, you can do that. It's when it becomes a group or more, or possibly a quorum, that then you look at violations of that Open Meeting Act. I think definitely as a business owner in town or a resident, you can certainly reach out to your city commissioners to express concerns or whatever it may be with them. I think your decision, your discussion as an APC member stands on its face, and I don't think necessarily that outside of that decision that goes to the city commission, I don't know that you necessarily need to represent the APC then by contacting commissioners separately. I think the recommendations and the discussion and the minutes speak for themselves as far as that goes. I did speak with the city manager, Joe Valentine, after our last meeting. I know there was some discussion as far as having possibly a joint workshop with the city commission to discuss some of these things. He basically said at that point that if we wanted to do something like that, it would be up to the APC and or possibly the city commission to work out some type of an agenda for that meeting as far as what would be discussed, what the topics would be, to formulate a plan, so it's not just an open conversation, that there's actually some type of agenda that can be followed and items to be discussed. So I think that's something if the APC is interested in doing that. I think with Joe Valentine leaving at the end of the month and Tom Marcus coming in January 1st, it's probably a discussion that I need to have with Tom Marcus once he's here and see how he would want to handle that moving forward, and possibly have a workshop with the commission and the APC if he thought that that was necessary or required.
I'd like to see that, just because I'd like to see a clarification of our mission. If it's changed or if it continue as it was.
Well, wouldn't this be just, can't this just be put on the agenda? Can't we just ask to be put on the agenda for the city council meeting?
Again, that's a discussion that I need to have with the new city manager, Tom Marcus, to see if that's something he would want to do. I think there would have to be, to have that put on the agenda, there would have to be some discussion points or topics, or, you can't just say we're going to talk and then we don't know what we're talking about, or it's just kind of, there needs to be something that leads that discussion.
Well, of course, we would do some planning about what we wanted to take to them.
Right.
The other, Lisa brings up the issue, and if I'm hearing that discussion from the ethics committee correctly, that question that she raises could be taken to the ethics committee for advisement.
Yeah, and I unfortunately, I don't know the path in which how that gets there. That's something I can look into. If you're telling me that the APC wants to report a possible ethics violation to the ethics board for review, I don't know what the path of that is, but I can definitely find that out for you.
Well, Lisa, wait. Lisa raised it as a question. And when you listen to that recording by the ethics committee, they say that they welcome questions of this sort. So.
Yeah, thank you, Judy. My question also is, the recipients of that newsletter, I don't know who's in receiving that newsletter. I'm sure it's widely distributed, but we received it. So does that consider a quorum?
I sent it because I received it, and I'm not sure how I got on the mailing list. You know.
So it wouldn't constitute a quorum. So if it's something where they're sending out notification to you, the quorum would be where that group met and actually had a discussion about something, not just that you all received a communication. No different than if I excuse me, when I sent out that video from the ethics committee, that would not be a violation of the Opens Meeting Act simply because I'm sending to you each individually, and there's no discussion going on between the group or myself regarding that type of thing. So if there's communication sent out, that wouldn't be a violation of the Open Meetings Act unless there's a discussion of that committee where there is a quorum present. If that makes sense.
It does. And knowing Clint, I'm sure he did his homework. And it sounds like it's okay that he did that.
And I would certainly say too, I mean, going back to what we've discussed before, you know, as members of the business community, employees of the business district, or residents of the city, you all have the ability to reach out and contact and communicate with anybody that you would like. If there's something that you think is wrong and you want to reach out to the ethics committee, by all means, you have the ability to do that. If the APC as a group is deciding to do something like that, then I think that's something that would have to be discussed within the committee here. And then I can find out for you the appropriate way to have that processed. I think Eric's got a comment here.
And that goes to the same thing for putting something on the agenda. If you come together as members of the APC and have enough for a quorum and come to the city commission meeting, then you are again violating the Open Meetings Act. That's why they have a joint workshop or schedule a joint workshop, which is planned to have both quorums in place to be able to do these kinds of discussions.
Thanks. That's a nice clarification.
Thank you, Eric.
So Judy, what do you think should be our plan of action?
I don't know. But this is coming up before the city commission next meeting. Isn't that what you said, Scott?
Correct. Correct. At Monday's meeting, the reduced rate parking is on the agenda.
So they're going to discuss the reduced rates then, is that right?
I'm
Yes.
sorry, I couldn't hear you.
They're going to discuss the issue. I mean, they're going to discuss our recommendation.
Correct. Correct.
So should one of us go to that meeting and clarify a point? Maybe
Absolutely. Absolutely. I plan on going to be at that meeting,
I'll go with you.
and I'll make my opinion expressed. I mean, you know, my concern is even going forward, you know, this pandemic is not going away anytime soon. And from what I understand with the vaccine, we'll be lucky if we have it distributed by, you know, sometime in May. So my concern is not only January, February, March, but I think we're going to have to come back again and go for the next quarter for free parking. I mean, you know, again, we're in a dire situation here. I mean, you can see from the holiday sales how dismal they were. They were talking about brick and mortar being down almost 50%. And we're trying to do a quick survey from the BSD. And I think we even need to come to them next quarter for additional funds for advertising for the system. I mean, I think, you know, we need a good working relationship with the, you know, the city commission. I don't want to be adversaries here. This is crazy. There's $19 million plus in this parking fund. To take a few $100,000, you know, is ludicrous. I mean, think about where these funds came from. They came from user fees. They came from the merchants. They came from assessments. This is money that was not, you know, contributed by the city commission. I mean, these are funds that were absolutely raised from the central business district. I mean, I just don't see the point here. I mean, and why we're fighting over this. I mean, so, and then I think we need to express our opinion at Monday's meeting.
Okay, Richard, I think somebody needs to go. I mean, your association with BSD is respected and you've been a great voice in the city, but it seems to me that it needs to also be expressed that this was seen as necessary in a wider, that this isn't only about merchants downtown. This is about supporting the viability of the city from.
Absolutely, the businesses and companies
and residents and shoppers,
Yeah.
which are all represented by our committee.
Yeah, it's a conglomeration of everybody that participates.
Right, and it's about the vibrancy, maintaining the vibrancy of the city to whatever extent we can, and showing that we're all in this together and that there's mutual support as we go through this. So I think that someone needs to go besides Richard. I hear you, Richard. You'll be there, and that's good because you come from both committees.
Yeah,
But I think somebody else will be there too.
I'll also go to the meeting.
Wonderful. As the chair, I think that that's more powerful.
And just so that you're all aware too, at the last city commission meeting, when it was on the agenda, it did get pushed back because the meeting was running so long. But the commissioners asked to be able to submit questions regarding the reduced rate parking, which they did last Wednesday. We received a list of questions, and the packet that's going to go to them for this meeting is going to have those questions and answers. So if you want to review that before the meeting, that's something that I've been working on this week to try to put that together. So it should be posted by hopefully tomorrow, if not Friday for sure. If you want to review that, at least you can get an idea of what type of questions the commissioners is asking.
What's going to be posted, Scott?
It would be posted on the city website on the agenda
For the city commission.
for a commission meeting, correct?
Okay, so this is part of my question about process. Why, if they pose questions and we had discussed it and sent recommendations, why were we not part of that loop of answering the questions that they had in order to consider it further?
Providing feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, basically what I can tell you from that is that if you saw the list of questions, it would probably be self-explanatory. They weren't really questions as far as your decision or why you made your decision. There was a question of that, which basically just referred to the minutes, and you can see your discussion. Most of the questions were about permit passes, who holds permit passes, how many are available. Much like you asked earlier, how many have been turned in, where are we at in that process, those types of things. So I don't know that it even would have been fitting for this group to discuss because they were just straightforward answers for the most part, as far as that goes. Also, the issue would have been is to have that discussion with you guys today and try to get it back before the commission, before the end of the year. Just the timing of them pushing it back made it difficult. Most of the questions that they had could have been asked at last meeting had the meeting not been running so long. They probably have been just questions that would have been asked during the meeting and answered either by myself or Ingrid Tai so that they can move forward on the topic. And I think because the meeting had run so long last time, they decided to just forward those questions so they can be answered for this meeting to hopefully expedite this meeting. But take a look, like I said, those will be posted and you'll be able to see what those questions are. And if you have any comments or concerns, just let me know.
Okay.
So I think before we end the meeting, myself and the chair did have a brief email conversation about the fact that there is no vice chair right now for the committee. And I think that's something we need to fill in case Al's not available, as well as his position would last, I think you said it was 2 years ago, that he was nominated and voted on to be the chair. Per the bylaws, that's supposed to happen annually in September. I don't know if the committee would like to address that today or take care of it at the next meeting. But I think we should make sure we update that we have a chair that's within the last year at least that's been voted on, and a vice chair in case he's not available for a meeting.
Well, Al, I would hope that you would continue to be chair if you're willing.
Thank you, yeah, for your confidence. I don't mind doing it.
So I don't see why we couldn't, if you'd like at this point, Al, to take nominations. That sounded like a nomination to me, but
That is a nomination. Thank you.
if we wanted to move forward on that and address that today, we can definitely do that.
I'll second the nomination.
Thank you. Should we vote on the nomination now?
Yes.
Yeah,
Alright,
yes.
Okay, let's take a roll call vote for nomination for chairman of
Judith Paskowitz,
Yes,
Richard Astring,
Yes.
Stephen Kilzinski,
Yes.
Al Vitus,
I accept.
Jennifer Yurt,
Yes.
You missed me, Lisa
Oh.
Kruger.
oh, sorry, Lisa Kruger.
Yeah, yes.
Great.
good going, Lisa.
Thank you. I appreciate your confidence. I'll do my best to fulfill my duties to their utmost capacity. So do we have a nomination for vice chair?
Is anyone interested in being the vice chair?
Yeah, good question.
I don't mind.
All right, I was gonna say Richard.
I nominate Richard Astrine as the vice chair of the APC.
I second.
Second from Lisa. Let's have another roll call vote.
Jennifer Yurt,
Yes.
Lisa Kruger,
Yes.
Judith Paskowitz,
Yes,
Al Vitus,
Absolutely.
Richard Astring,
Yes.
Stephen Kilzinski.
Yes.
All right, thank you all.
Congratulations.
Well, on the nomination party. Anything else, Scott?
That is all I have for today. The only thing I just wanted to, I guess, ask is that the next meeting would be scheduled for January 6th. I know that kind of somewhat falls into what most people consider part of the holiday with New Year's and all that other stuff. So we don't know if we want to, at this point, anticipate that it's going to be a meeting, if everybody's going to be available, or if we just want to postpone that and go with February as the next meeting. I don't have anything pressing at this point that would have to come to the APC. If that did change, I could definitely reach out and look for a more appropriate date that may work for everybody, unless everybody believes they're in town and available on the 6th. We can kind of keep that open and then see if there's anything that comes up that we need to have that meeting or not.
Yeah, I think keep it open, but go to February. Anybody else?
yeah,
agree.
yeah, hang on to the date, but assume that we'll probably postpone.
Richard?
I agree.
Perfect. With that, I have nothing further other than happy holidays, everybody. Enjoy your time.
Happy
Yeah.
holidays.
Same to you.
Thanks.
Sorry, before we adjourn, I should have asked where everyone was located at the beginning, so I'm just gonna quickly do it now. Is anyone not located in Birmingham who's a board member? Everyone's in Birmingham. Richard,
I
where
am-
are you?
Say that again. I'm sorry, Laura.
You're located in Birmingham right now?
Yes, my business is in Birmingham.
Yes. So Richard, where are you located?
Well, my business is in Birmingham, but I'm a Huntington Woods resident.
Okay, so you're in Huntington Woods right now.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And is anyone else not in Birmingham at this time?
I live in Bloomfield Hills.
But where are you located presently?
I'm in Birmingham on North Old Woodward, next to Lot 6,
Presently.
present.
Yes, perfect.
She's asking for where you are currently during this meeting. So if you're at home in Bloomfield Hills, then
Oh, no, I'm in my office.
okay.
Okay,
I'm
thank
in-
you, everyone.
I'm at 620 North Old Woodward.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that important or
Take
not?
care.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Why
Paul.
are you asking the question?
Sorry?
Yes, for the new requirements for the current meetings on Zoom, during the initial, roll call, you were supposed to give your current city and state for the record as to where you were zooming in from. And
Oh.
we missed that at the beginning of this meeting.
We did.
Huh.
Which
Good,
was my
good.
fault, but I'm asking now, so we're all squared away.
Thanks.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Scott, can I adjourn the meeting?
I'm sorry?
Can I adjourn the meeting?
I think we're all set.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Have a good day.